Hello, hello. It is week 4 of the 9 weeks with the natural way to draw challenge. And if you didn't get a chance to join us on the live Zoom call, I just wanted to catch you up on the 2 new exercises that we are working on from Nicolaides this week. And we'll dive right in from our course here, 9 weeks with the natural way to draw. So just quick overview, if you are on the desktop, this is part of the fantastic 10 Steps to Drawing network. So as time goes on, I'll be adding more and doing all kinds of stuff here. And one thing I did want to point out is that in the 10 Steps to Drawing website, if you go to events, you'll see all of our upcoming Zoom calls where for, gosh, we still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more weeks. We will be working week by week with the natural way to draw, doing exercises directly from the classic text, the natural way to draw, and slowly honing ourselves into better artists, more accurate, able to see in a whole different way. So let's dive into where we are now. Week 4, I'm back in the 9 weeks with the natural way to draw course. If you click week 4, you will see the week 4 drawing schedule. I'm going to go ahead and pop this large for you. And if you scroll down, you'll see you can also download and print the schedule, which is a lot more fun if you like to cross things off of your lists like I do, and it'll help you see right at a glance what exercise you are on that day. So we've got just your warm-ups every day, about 5 minutes. We will be working a lot with the figure this week. And then we will dive into our new exercise, weight, and then modeled drawing with just a little bit of cross contour thrown in there. So we are really getting into an entirely different way of thinking this week with Nicolaides, and it's pretty darn cool. I'm going to go ahead and just pop up real quick. I've jumped to our overview. I want to show off the natural way to draw. You can always get your copy of the book just by going to the overview, and I've got the link to this PDF right there. It is free for the public, and we're on page 40. Here we go. Okay, just to give you a sense of the kind of stuff we're going to be doing this week. We've got model drawing and weight drawing, and Nicolaides is really focusing on weight, mass, form. So very different than what we've been doing with line and contour and gesture. So let's dive right in. If you scroll, I'm really just zoomed back here to week 4. I'm going to go down to weight drawing, the lesson weight drawing, click that. Here we are, full explanation for you, condensed from the full chapter on Nicolaides, which is still great. I would definitely read that if you had some time. We may think of form as the 3-dimensional shape of weight. That is one thing I love from this chapter that Nicolaides tells us. Whenever you learn the 7 elements of art, you have form, which is 3-dimensional, and shape, which is 2-dimensional. And yeah, that's important to know as you're drawing. However, to take the idea of form and say that 3-dimensionality is the shape of weight, to me, it's just reframing the concept of kind of go to, okay, I know it's 3D, it's got height, width, and depth, like but that the height, width, and depth are really the shape of the heft of something. And in the book, if you read the chapter, he goes into the differences between picking up an empty glass, the weight of like fine china, and how that feels differently in the hand versus if you were holding a cast iron pot. And as an artist, how can we draw, and through our visual awareness and our connection to the subject, how can we convey the weight itself through the shape of the weight, the 3-dimensional form, the way that we draw it? And so we're going to be drawing inside out almost. Like we have X-ray vision as we draw these weight drawings. So let me go right down to the how-to here, where Nicolaides tells us how to approach this exercise. As usual, it's going to be very strange. It's going to have a lot of limitations and restrictions. And because of that, it's going to give us clear intention, drawing with weight, that will help us down the line to incorporate weight as well as other elements into our finished drawings. So let's do it. First of all, we will be working with the side, not the point of your drawing medium. So I went ahead and pre-sharpened some pencils to have a lot of the lead showing so that I can use the side of them. I tend to hold my pencil like so, as opposed to how you write with when you're writing letters and words, and use the sharp tip using the side. Also, a Conti crayon would be absolutely great for this. In the book, it calls for a lithography crayon. If you got one of those lying around, you could use charcoal if you don't mind the mess. So use what you've got. Use what you're able to that will give not a sharp line, but a area, kind of fuzz, wide area of a mark. Next, we'll start in the middle of the figure and work from the center to the outside contours. And there is a nuance here that's very important. When he says that we're going to start from the center, he's not talking about, gosh, I wish I had a, oh, I do, one second. A big fat book. Okay, I got a big fat book here, right? So when we say start from the center, if we were going to draw this book, we're not saying the center as in the center point from the edges. That's not the center we're talking about. We're talking about the center as in imagine the center of the depth of the book as well as its height and width. The actual interior, imagining the space inside the book. If the book was still closed, like we're drawing, boom, that point. Yeah? So whenever you're working on drawing from the inside out, Nicolaides asks us to think of ourselves as a sculptor building up a figure with hunks of clay. Again, we're getting into this tactile, forcing yourself to think in different sensory ways as you draw. The type of sculpting that he's talking about is not the type where you take a big rock and carve away from the outside in. He is suggesting that we imagine the kind of sculpting where you have like a wire frame, so you have like a person, and then you come in and add clay on top one strip at a time to build the muscles in the form of the person or thing that you're drawing. So that is how we can imagine ourselves as sculptors building the form from the inside out. I've been approaching this as I'll start with the inner core, which if it's a figure is often the skeleton, and then imagine myself refocusing my line work, not really lines, around as if I was adding each muscle and each bit of mass and heft to that person. Never think of yourself as drawing a line in this exercise. Going to be tricky because we're using pencils and all of that, but if you find yourself using a sharp tip or creating lines, just tilt that pencil over, use the side edge of your mark maker, and if you do have a crayon or a charcoal or anything like that, that's more ideal. This is not line work, this is form work. This is big mass hulking areas. So we're not thinking of lines, we're thinking of shapes and areas. And really, we're building. It's like we're imagining that we're creating this three-dimensional thing on a two-dimensional page. And that means we will have to go over the same area over and over again. So you may see that there are darker areas on your form. However, as we say in the next bit here, do not consider light and shadow. You're not drawing the lights and shadows. If we come back to the example from the book, you'll notice that the areas that have the darkest darks are areas where the weight and the heaviness in the form, the core has been retraced over because they're just building from the inside out. The legs are not as dark. I don't know quite why that happened, if it was a perhaps because the figure is sort of jumping and he's lifting through. I don't know. But normally you would almost see like perhaps a darker skeleton within, and no sharp outer contour lines at all. We might not even see the full finished outer limits of the drawing. They can be fuzzy, they can be sort of gooshy. You can see here there's no sharp outer lines, contour. So that is weight drawing. We're gonna jump in with a 10-minute drawing on day 1. And I just want to show you a couple examples from my sketchbook from our live call the other night of weight drawing. So here we are. See that all right? And it's a loose flowing line. It's not a heavy sharp line. It tends to be very circular when I do it. I've seen some people a little bit have more angular lines, but just go with what feels right to you as you're imagining adding each tendon and muscle as a line that you're building that figure from the inside out. Enjoy, have fun. It's an experiment, so just try different things and see what works for you. Let's scroll on down to modeled drawing, our next assignment. Okay, now we get to see what I think is Nicolaides' genius as a teacher at work, because we're taking exercises we've done in the past, building them on top of each other to create a new understanding and to get a new effect as well with the finished drawing. So with the model drawing, what you're going to do is you're going to take the form drawing we just did, do a form drawing, and then add a cross contour on top of it. So as you can see from these examples here, you're going to end up with dark, hefty, hulking masses because you're starting with that form, which is already, another kind of form of scribbling, of coloring, having these black, dark masses of weight on the page. Then after you've done that for about half the time of your exercise, maybe a little less, maybe a third of the time, then you're going to come back and do a cross contour using a sharp line, using the edge of your pencil as we've done in the past with cross contour, looking for the vertical contours and the horizontal contours. Now, looking at the two examples from the book, you can see there's hardly a clear, sharp horizontal or vertical line happening here at all. So one thing I love that he says here, different students may work in different ways and yet all be right. So I think with Nicolaides' teaching approach, it's not so much that you're doing it exactly with the line work that he says, because obviously then all artists would have their artwork look the same, and what kind of world would that be? No. Your personal style will come out here, and that'll be interesting to see as you post in our group. But the intention is what really matters here, and the more that we're diving into this challenge, the more I'm understanding how big a deal the intention is. So if you find it easier to have more horizontal lines that really look more clear and crisp and like a little latitude and longitude lines over the topography of your figure, that's great. If you find yourself a bit more loose and flowing with your lines, that is also okay and awesome. If we look really closely at the second figure, because here it's hard to see the lines, but you can identify them. If you look really closely, there are some cross contour lines coming around the shoulders. And another thing that Nicolaides mentions is that we should have a lighter hand on areas that are coming closer to us and a heavier hand, putting more pressure on the pencil as we get into the areas that seem farther away. And I want to show you again, directly from the book, scrolling on down. Here is his example of that with the elephant, the areas that are popping out in volume that come toward us as the viewer have a lighter or even no pigment on them, and the areas that are carved in that if we were a sculptor, we would be pressing in with our hand to get that area of clay like deep in there. Those we're pressing down harder. As we wrap around the edge of the object that we're drawing, you press down harder. So going around a shoulder or a curve of the torso, you would press the pressure of your medium down harder on that area. So only one thing to do is to try it yourself. This is my example from yesterday's live call. And I didn't finish the cross contour, but I was really pleased with what that exercise is going to be like. So I'm going to be doing a lot more. You'll see everything in our 9 weeks to drawing course. If you go over to topics, you can check out my portfolio if you'd like to see my examples of all of these exercises. And please be sure to post your work in the community area. Let me know if you have any questions. You can send me a little message in the chat, or of course, talk to me in our live call Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Central. See you at the next one, and have lots of fun with your model drawing and weight drawing. Ciao for now.